So we know the issues, we know about energy, we know about the border, we know Joe Biden doesn't know what he's doing. We know all that, we get all that, but why do this? Why do this here tonight with Legacy PAC? Because there's a whole lot of people who have the passion to save this country who need help getting off the ground.
The purpose of Legacy PAC is to save America. That's our mission. That's what we really want to do because America is worth saving.
I am by trade, I'm a cybersecurity engineer. Okay, so this is my first run in politics. We need more conservative Republicans standing up and fighting for the Constitution.
We're an America First PAC, and we want to promote and help our up-and-coming candidates, and we're going to be holding the line for President Trump.
I joined the Army at 17 years old. My first day at my first unit, which was 25th Infantry, was September 10th, 2001. So the next day was 9/11. And I spent about a total of a decade between Iraq and Afghanistan in country. So my country means everything to me. When I realized that if people like myself who don't want to be politicians don't start stepping up and taking these seats, that nothing's going to change, then I said, okay, I'll do it.
Who deserves to lead the people of this country more than those who serve this country? So I'm behind every one of them. So let's make sure we get more veterans into power. I'm all for it.
Remember why you're involved. We have to make sure people remain humble and not engage in self-glorification. You are here for one reason, and that is to save the country. Period. End of story.
And for those candidates who are looking uphill and wondering how, keep your head down, focus on the target, and outwork everybody. And I promise you, you're not gonna lose. You're either gonna win on election night or you change the game on election night. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much, Legacy PAC.
Thank you, Legacy PAC.
And Stan, where's Stan? Stan is with Veterans for Trump.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you all. We're honored. I know there are so many organizations represented here today.
We're sitting here too much. But you do very well. And I just had somebody write down, first of all, James and Sarah Pritchard, thank you very much. Yes, great job. Thank you. We appreciate all the help. Stanley and Donna Fitzgerald.
Right here, sir.
Thank you very much. It's great. It's great that you're with us. Mike Acton.
Hi, this is Stan Fitzgerald with Veterans for Trump, and I'm here with Mike Stewart, who's running for Attorney General in West Virginia. Mike is a sitting state senator and former member of the Trump administration, as well as a former U.S. attorney. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me this morning.
We're honored to have you here, sir. Could you give our viewers a little bit about your background, Mike?
Wow, so I could go on for a long time, but I won't. I'll give you the 80,000 foot level version. But listen, I say this all the time. I'm one of the most blessed people I know, and I wasn't born with a fat wallet or a famous last name from a political standpoint. Heck, I'm from Mahler in Barber County, one of the poor counties in West Virginia. And I still remember spending all the time with my grandma, grandpa. I'm in that little white house with that tin roof in that holler in Barber County that could overlook a creek that ran orange from acid mine drainage, literally. We used to take gallons of water in there. And my dad, 51-year coal miner. I'll tell you, though, people ask me all the time, who are your American heroes? It's my mom and dad. And I've been lucky to be in the political process, do some neat things, but I was one of those fortunate people, lived in a big family with a lot of love surrounding me and folks who went to work every morning and worked hard. And we grew up with respect for our country and a love for West Virginia. And that's something that just emanated inside of me. Going later until, and it was a big Democrat family, which is sort of interesting because all these things I did later in my life were never predictable as a boy growing up in West Virginia. In fact, I was the first to go to college, oldest of 64 grandkids on my dad's side. And I got so many stories from those things. I say sometimes the values that I have, that I value so much, that build the character that I have, I learned in that holler in Barber County. Truly, those small town values are what maintains my faith and the strength of my family, strength of my country to this day. Later in life, I just became politically active. I got tired of being poor. I got tired of working for the man. I got tired of the way things were working in West Virginia. Switched to Republican and surprisingly ended up being chairman of the state Republican Party in West Virginia. My wife then got cancer, and there's certain times in your life you got to be a dad and a father. And so I stepped down, focused on the importance of family. I see too many people in public service who have messed up families, and I've always just been committed to make sure we don't mess up the order of things: faith, family, and then public service. And so when 2015 came around and I saw this guy come down an escalator and just started talking, I had watched Donald Trump on things like The Apprentice in the past. I wasn't a huge fan of that man, but when he came down that escalator and started talking about issues, he was saying what I was thinking. He was saying what my neighbors were thinking. He was saying what people across West Virginia were thinking. Because I was one of those folks that grew up not believing that Republicans or Democrats were going to make a big difference for us, right? We were the invisible people. We were the people who every 2 years or 4 years would hear from politicians as to what they were going to do. But then we just sort of drifted off into the background and nothing ever changed for my family. Poverty from one generation led itself to the next. I was asked to be the co-chair of his campaign in West Virginia in 2015. I thought about it for about 5 minutes and said, yes, I'm going to do this. And heck, I was one of those folks who was a Republican Party chairman. I was one of those folks probably considered the establishment, although I was always fighting the establishment my whole life. I feel like I've been fighting everything my whole life, a lot like Donald Trump. And I can be a little gruff like him, but I get things done like him. And so when I had the opportunity to chair that campaign, co-chair that campaign in West Virginia, we just ran with it. And he was here a lot, which was great because I got to see him a lot. I got to talk with him a lot. He is the greatest leader in terms of president of the United States in my lifetime, the differences that he's made. And I think it's so important we reelect him for a third time this election cycle. So after that election, I was offered to go to the White House. I turned it down. Might have been one of the smartest things, but I had 2 kids in high school. Thought I should finish the job of raising them, getting them to college. I think it's what a dad should do. And I turned it down, but I was offered to become the United States Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia. I was built for that job. Like, it was a job, given that fighting instinct that I have, this love for the people of West Virginia. I was built for it. My numbers don't deny that either. We had more raids than any other U.S. attorney in the history of West Virginia in terms of targeted takedowns with respect to the drug epidemic. I took enough fentanyl pills off the streets of West Virginia to kill more than 40 million people in a state of 1.75 million people. Think about those numbers. I had the largest Medicaid fraud takedown in the history of West Virginia, the largest elder fraud takedown in the history of West Virginia. I was just one of those folks that got off the elevator every morning with a real sense of urgency to try to make a difference. That's what I loved about that job. And it's pretty cool when you can say you were nominated by a president of the United States to be a United States attorney, and then you're confirmed by the United States Senate. That doesn't happen very many times in your life. And that wasn't only neat for me, that's important and neat for my family, because people like me don't typically get the chance to be a U.S. attorney. And we did it through hard work. After that fateful election night and Biden was sworn into the White House, I knew I was going to get that call. And it came about a month later, and they gave me a bit of time. They wanted my resignation, of course, despite that historic record and the work that we had done. And I thought long and hard about it, because there was a piece of me that said, I'm built for this job. U.S. attorney ought not be a partisan position. And because we didn't run the Department of Justice while I was there in terms of partisanship or targeting folks on the basis of who they are. We tried, regardless of who the individual was, we tried to follow crime and investigations. And so I thought about letting them fire me, but I said, no, I'll do the right thing. I'll step down. U.S. attorneys don't go hungry. About a year after getting back into the private sector, there was an opportunity to run for the state Senate in West Virginia, representing Lincoln, Logan, Boone, and Southern Kanawha County. One of the poorest districts in West Virginia, and by extension, probably one of the poorest in the country. I was supposed to lose that race. It was a 6-1. It is a 6-1 Democrat district with a 4-term, 16-year incumbent Democrat popular state senator I was supposed to lose that race. We won by almost 20%. And so it's been an incredible ride. I'm running for Attorney General because, one, we need somebody with some backbone. Two, we need somebody who's America first, who's willing to stand up and fight the federal government, who's coming after literally the values and the lifestyles and the jobs that comprise the people of West Virginia. And we have to have people who will stand up. And there's just so many challenges we face. And I'll say this, one of the things I'm going to do as Attorney General is use that bully pulpit. And I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement. While I was U.S. Attorney, I proposed the Back the Blue license plate, and it was passed by the West Virginia legislature. When the first plate was issued, plate 001, it was one of the great honors for me. It was issued to me. And it adorns my F-150 with the 220,000 miles on it right now. And being a state senator, I was given the option to get a state senator license plate. But I said, no, I'm going to forego that. I'm keeping that Back the Blue license plate. Law enforcement, first responders around this country have faced unique challenges like we've never seen before. It's almost like it's us versus them, but I can tell you that it's only those bureaucrats, especially unelected bureaucrats or crazies on the left, who seem to think we don't want law enforcement. My experience as I travel around West Virginia, as I travel around the country, moms and dads, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, they want law enforcement. They understand how important it is. But the challenge of being law enforcement today, we had a guy, Sergeant Corey Maynard, and we don't have the death penalty in West Virginia, traveled to Mingo County, one of our far southern counties in West Virginia. And that bad guy was sitting there waiting and targeted him and ambushed him and shot him. It was a pure ambush. Sergeant Maynard, it's a tragic story, and this just happened a few months ago, was laying on the ground bleeding out. What did this fiend do? Walked up to him and that butt of the rifle nailed him so hard in the head over and over, it busted the butt of the rifle. You know how hard you have to hit somebody for that. And so I've called for and will propose in this legislative session, as Attorney General, I will drive the point that if you ambush first responders in the line of duty leading to death, the death penalty should be on the table. No exceptions. And it ought to be one of our considerations. My view is we've got to get tougher, not softer, with respect to the way we deal with criminals. And then you look at the issues with President Trump. Listen, I love the Department of Justice. It breaks my heart to see what's happening in Washington today. I truly believe, and I can tell you with every ounce of my soul, all the U.S. attorneys I worked with while I served under the Trump administration, I was given this one principle. We investigate crime, not people. That was the principle I was supposed to take. We investigate crimes, not people. Boy, how things have changed. And it breaks my heart to see what's happened in Washington today. There is no question that President Trump is being targeted for who he is, not for what he's done. They can't beat him at the ballot box. Why didn't they bring this stuff 2.5 years ago? And so it's incredibly frustrating to me, but it ought to be frustrating to every American. Why? Yesterday, that terrible mugshot was taken. An American president elected by the people. And today, it's not only across this country. Those liberals and crazy radicals who are celebrating that mugshot, it weakened our country. Across the world today, in places like Afghanistan and Iraq and Russia and China, that mugshot is circulating. It says a lot about who we are as a people. And the one thing, we used to have disputes on politics. We used to disagree on issues, but we always knew our justice system might be slow, but it was fair. It was balanced. It was blind and impartial. And the challenge we face today is we have a justice system that looks like it's bought and sold, targeting one individual to make him pay for whatever it is that they want him to pay for. It's just a tremendous challenge. And so we face tremendous challenges today. That's why I'm running for Attorney General, and our current Attorney General is running for governor. And he was a strong Attorney General who took on the federal government. And I think it's important we have a fighter like me who's not worried about polls and who's not worried about people massaging my shoulders, and somebody who's willing to fight these folks. And that's sort of what I was born with. That's something I'll die with, is that sense of fight. Maybe I should pick a fewer fights, But gosh, these are partisan, punitive times. If we don't have folks like you and me who are willing to stand up, we're surely lost as a country. And I love ordinary people, people that I meet out there on the campaign trail. And this older lady came up to me about a week ago and grabbed my hand. And she said, "I've never been so frightened for my country as I am right now." And she says, "I truly believe in the next election, we're either going to thrive or we're going to dive as a country." And she says, "I never believed I would ever say that." She goes, "I know I've heard this every election. It's the most important election." But I could see the fear in her eyes, and I feel the grip of her hand. This is real in America today. And folks who think that they're targeting President Trump, they need to understand they're targeting all of us. That's what this is about. And so I appreciate the time. I could tell you so many stories, so many great stories. But, one final thing, I carry my wallet every single day, or my pocket every single day. A wallet filled with, I got all these great statistics while I was U.S. attorney, but I carry this every single day, whether I'm at the beach, whether I'm hunting, whether I'm with family, whether I'm at church, whether I'm at work. And it's filled with the pictures of the victims of the opiate crisis. And so I got all those great statistics I can tell you. But these are the pictures that haunt me in the dark of night. And this is Victoria Douglas. And her story, too long for me to tell you, but I got to know the moms and dads and the brothers and sisters and the sons and daughters at the point of the greatest grief. These are the pictures that haunt me in the dark of night. And they're the pictures that motivate me every single day to fight for vengeance, but also for justice. And what's happening at our southern border, it's tragedy. The idea we're letting these cartel members, we know where they're at, we know where they eat their lunch, we know where they eat their dinner and where they put their head on their pillows. The idea that we're letting those folks invade this nation with those poisons that kill and destroy law enforcement and our families and our communities, it's a tragedy. And we've got to get serious once and for all about dealing with this drug scourge in this country. Because I think what we're dealing with today are decades of the erosion of respect, of values, and a drug crisis that's been normalized. Drug normalization has been one of the great challenges we face as a country. And we've got to start pushing back. And I think I'm one of those optimists. I think all across this country, in small towns, in our churches, in our schools, in a certain way, maybe we should say COVID will ultimately be a blessing, because to a certain degree, people started to wake up. And what I see all across West Virginia, and you're probably seeing it too, are a lot of folks who weren't engaged that now are engaged, that want to make a difference and understand how important it is for them to be engaged and active in this process. And so I appreciate the time, certainly available to answer any of your questions.
Well, actually, you covered every question I had. So that was the first time that's ever happened, but I have none. So,
well, I apologize for that, but there's just
no,
so many stories I can tell, like those raids. Like we had this raid in Huntington, 250 law enforcement officers on the streets targeting 100 defendants. And I still remember, like, my favorite thing isn't when I get at least positive words of encouragement from politicians. It's when I hear from ordinary people out there. And that was a day Huntington, West Virginia had been ravaged by the drug epidemic. And I said, gosh, these folks coming in from Detroit and Dayton and Columbus and Akron who have really raped and pillaged our countryside. We shouldn't tolerate this. We got to get tougher about these things. And so I love that day. A politician sent me a note saying, I love hearing those helicopters in the air. But my favorite comment was some reader comment on a news story. And he said, oh, great, now Stuart has helicopters. And I loved it. But I'll say this, President Trump, I endorsed him. I was the first in West Virginia as a public figure to endorse him in 2015. I couldn't in 2020 because I was a U.S. attorney. But I was the first this election cycle to endorse President Trump as well. I don't think there's anybody in this country who should be elevated back to president like President Trump. He fights. He's a fighter for us. I think it's so important. I have no reservation whatsoever. He was a great president, and we need him back in that office today. And I'll say I might have violated some DOJ policies, but from my desk as U.S. attorney, I had this personalized stationery. And I know he's a busy man, but what a tough job being president. And every day he woke up, he was waiting for somebody to cut his head off. Right? They were after him from day one, from the day he came down that escalator. But I would send them little notes from my desk, just little ones that would say, keep your head up, you're doing great. Or the American people got your back. That's all my note would be. And I would end up getting notes back from them that were those notes with a little note written above. And I'd like to think in a little way that I was trying to give them some encouragement. It's got to be tough being president of the free world. And it's got to be extra tough when you have those powerful forces coming against them. But I admire the work he did then. Those policies, America First policies, were great for America. And it's critically important we get those policies back as soon as we possibly can.
Amen to that. And he is Teflon. I mean, I just don't know how he goes through all this. He's taking these hits for us because, like you said, they're coming after him. They'll come for us next. Senator, I'd like to announce here that our board voted to endorse you overwhelmingly. You have an outstanding record. You are most qualified to lead the state as Attorney General. So we want to do all we can to support.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And had I known that, I would have talked less because
No,
I
it's
say
okay.
in court, when you have a victory, be quiet. And so, but listen, I'm thrilled. Listen, we're in this together. And anybody watching this, I want to encourage them. This is not the time to be timid. This is the time to stand. This is the time to be counted. And it is so important, not only for our country, but for our families. And so I appreciate the vote of confidence, but our work is ahead and it's hard work. And but I'll say this, we're up to the challenge. We can meet this task. And I'm absolutely confident in the end we win.
And Senator, how can people across the country visit your website to help you get there?
Well, I need that help because, listen, as President Trump is up against powerful forces, I am too. And all of those middle of the road and those leftist groups are targeting folks like me. Why? They fear me because they can't control me, because I fight for ordinary people, not those folks in the middle who win regardless of who wins. They can go to makewvgreatagain.com, makewvgreatagain.com. And I need as much help as I can get. It's interesting. As soon as I announced, and they understand how supportive I am of an America First agenda, they also know I'm a fighter. And I'm not bought and paid for by anybody. I fight for one constituent. That's the people of West Virginia. These folks are coming after us. And it's not just me. It's all of us who stand up for America first. There's a real effort to try to weaken this nation. And it's a tremendous challenge that if we don't elect people like me, we're going to be in a heap of hurt. And so I need everybody out there, whether it's $25, $50, you name it, or more. We're going to need every ounce of help we can get, because guess what? They don't make it easy on us. Fighting these challenges are tough. They're difficult. But let me say this to every person who says it's hard to stand up against these powerful forces. You have to stand up against these powerful forces. It's the difference between your grandchildren having a great America and having no America. And so I appreciate anybody who goes to that website and helps us.
Thank you, sir. We will certainly encourage our veterans and first responders to do that. And I will get this out to the press in the next day or so. And thank you. We look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Great. Thank you so much for the vote of confidence. And I'm getting back to work as soon as we get off this call.
Thank you, Senator. Bye-bye now.
Thank you very much.